Hey kiddos, so obviously I couldn't be here with you today, so I have this video to help review some of the things that we've been talking about in class. So you should have this packet in front of you, the Solving Systems of Equations by Graphing and Substitution. So if you recall, if we have an equation, it looks like that, we're looking for solutions for that equation. So this was back in our last unit. So this first thing we need to do is we need to take this equation that's in standard form. You remember ax plus by equals c. That's in standard form. We're going to put it in slope-intercept form. So go ahead and do that now really quick. So move your 4x over. So negative 4x plus 10. And then you're going to multiply everything by negative 1. So now our equation that we should have for our line is positive 4x minus 10. So our goal is to look for all the inputs and outputs, or x's and y's. So our x's and y's are our inputs and outputs. So we have a bunch of x's and y's here, and we need to see which ones are solutions. So we're going to take each one, and we're going to plug, if I can write, you know how this goes. We're going to plug in our x and y for each point and see if they work. If the left side equals the right side, then they are solutions. Okay, so you're going to pause the video and you're going to do that now. All right, so plugging in your x's and y's, you should have gotten these 5 points as solutions to your equation. So you could either do this by hand and physically plug them in each one by one and see if they are equal, or you can take your calculator and you can go to your y equals button and plug 4x minus 10 into the first line. You would hit graph, and this is the line that you should see. But it doesn't give us any numbers. If we hit second table or second graph and give us our table, we can determine if these numbers are actually on there. So if I'm looking for negative 114, that's one of them we circled. 1, negative 6, that's one of them we circled. 0, negative 10. 3, 2, and 5, 10. Okay, so make sure you're checking what you have. You have the calculator, so definitely use it. So how do you decide whether or not an ordered pair was a solution or not for your equation? So you can, when you plug it in, your left side equals your right side, and then when you graph it, the points are on your graph. Okay. You can pause this video at any time if you need to stop and write, so pause it if you need to catch up. So how many ordered pairs x and y will be the solution set of the equation 4x minus y equals 10, which is the original? There's going to be infinitely many because a line goes on forever and ever. So when we graph our lines, remember our domain is all real numbers, or negative infinity to infinity, and our range is the same thing. So if they can go on left and right to the infinities, then it has infinite solutions. So what does a solution of the equation mean? So it means that the xy point, the xy coordinate, is on the line. All right, so a little review from our functions unit. So when it says create a visual representation of the solution set, all you're doing is graphing. That's all you're doing. So when you see wording like that, create a visual representation, you're graphing. So pause the video and go ahead and make your graph for the line. All right, so you should have this graph. I plotted a lot more points than what I needed, so make sure that your graph looks like that as well. Pause the video at any time to make sure that your answers look like mine. So for example 1, we have the sum of two numbers is 25. What are the numbers? So the first part says create an equation using two variables to represent this situation. Well, we have two numbers, so we can say x is our first number and y is our second number. The word sum means add, so we're going to take x plus y and we're going to set it equal to 25. So that means when we put this in slope-intercept form, we get negative x plus 25. So then it says list at least 6 solutions to the equation you created in part A. In part C, create a graph that represents the solution set. So I'm actually going to do part C first and do my graph. So 25 is not going to fit on here, so I'm going to adjust my graph both ways to go up by 5 so that it's equal. So when I do my slope, it doesn't mess up my slope. So anytime you have to adjust your graph, make sure you account for your slope. If you're going down one to the right one, make sure that you're scaling your graph properly. You won't have to do that a lot, but you should know how. So my y-intercept here is 25, and my slope here is -1. So y-intercept, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and I'm going to keep doing this until I feel like I have enough points to graph that. Okay, so my graph is done. This is part C, which is awesome. So now when you graph it, it gives you enough information to find your 6 points. You should have a y-intercept. It's your y-intercept. You should also have an x-intercept. And then all the points in between you can use. So we have 520, 10, 15. Oops, not 20. We're going down 15, 10, and 25. And it's asking for at least 6. Okay, so we have our at least 6. If you can give me more than 6, but we have the 6 that we need. So that is our example 1. Pause the video if you need to. We're going to keep moving. So you should be at this point after you've fixed your example, written everything you need to write, and caught up on the video. So at this point, it's a you try. So with you try, I want you to pause the video and complete the example on your own. Okay, so when you do that, you need to work the problem out on your own. And when you're ready, you're going to push play and check your answers. Okay, you need to, and this is important, you follow this part of the directions, fix anything within the problem that you need in another color. So that means you can use a blue pen, you can use a color pencil, you can use a crayon, you can use your rainbow pen, you can use your galaxy pen. I don't care what other color you use, as long as you can show me that you fixed and corrected what you need to correct. If you have no corrections, that means no eraser marks. Okay, so if you have no corrections, I shouldn't see any eraser marks, and you can put just a little check mark with each of them. Okay, so take this time, try the problem on your own. You need to hit pause. Okay, at this point, you should be ready to check your work. After you've unpaused the video, remember, you need to do your corrections in another color. Okay, I should see all corrections done in another color. So for part A, I labeled Beyonce was X, JLo was Y, and I have this equation, y equals -x plus 25. Okay, it says list at least 3 solutions to the equation in part A. So there's actually 6 really good ones because this example is very, 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 very very similar to the last one we just did. So I gave you all 6 to make sure that you were good to go. So take a minute if you need to pause it and check those. And then the graph should look very similar to the graph that we have on the front. Now, the only thing I want to change about the graph is, because I'm sure some of you put arrows in, but keep in mind, these are negative numbers down here. You can't have negative songs, okay? So make sure that you have, like over here we have negative x's, these are negative y's, so your line is literally going to just be a little triangle right here. Okay, so make sure that you don't have your little arrows in there. Again, pause the video whenever you need to so you can catch up. Now, we're going to move on to solving systems of equations by graphing and by substitution. So we talked about this. You're going to have to do the graphical representation and show everything algebraically. So graphically and algebraically. So when you're doing it graphically, you remember you have to get the y by itself because it has to be in y equals mx plus b. So you need to take a minute and do that on your own. Okay, so pause the video and do your graph. So if you paused your video and did your graph should look like that. It doesn't look like they cross, but they actually do. So if you remember, parallel lines are the only ones that don't cross. These do not have same slopes, so they will cross at some point. They are just not crossing right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use substitution to show our algebraic proof and find where they cross. So we're going to take what y equals, which is right here, and plug it into our y in our second equation. So x minus parentheses 2x plus 1 equals 7. Remember to distribute your negative out here, and it has to go to both terms. We keep harping on it, but it needs to happen. So now we have negative x minus 1 equals 7. Add your 1 over. So then multiply both sides by your negative 1. So x equals negative 8. Now remember, we're not done with that. We're going to take this guy and we're going to plug it back in to our original equation. So we're going to take it and plug it back into the one we didn't use. So now we've got y equals negative 16 plus 1 equals 15. So our solution here should be negative 8, 15, which makes sense because if you go down, or negative 15, I'm sorry, negative 15, if you go down here, we don't have negative 15 on our graph. So example 2, I want you to pause and do on your own the whole thing. So you're probably sitting there wondering what you're supposed to do at this point now that you have your graph and your potential solution right here. So we've got two y's that are by themselves, and we know with substitution that's exactly what we need. So we're going to set them equal to each other. Okay? Then we're going to multiply by 2 to both sides to get rid of our fraction so that we don't have to deal with that anymore. So now we have 8x minus 2 equals negative x plus 16. So then we can move around everything we need. So we have 9x equals 18. We divide and we should get x equals 2. So remember, we're going to take this and we're going to plug it in, and it doesn't matter which one you plug it back into. You just need to make sure that you are consistently doing it. So we should get 2 positive 7, and it looks like that's what we get there. Okay? At this point, you need to pause the video and do the U-try. Again, you need to do it in another color and fix anything or do the corrections in any other color. So you have to pause your video and work on it on your own. This will be the end of video 1. The answer will be in video 2.